All right, welcome to everybody on this evening, which you had many fine choices tonight. Red Sox being on a streak and everything. I'm sure you're going to get ready for that later and everything, but there are other things going on in the world. But I'm very glad that everybody has come to join us tonight. And we want to welcome Dale Scott on board, and also with Rob Neyer, who is, I don't know, Rob, are you kind of like his sidekick tonight?
That is my new term for myself. I couldn't figure out what I should be. I realized sidekick is perfect.
Well, if I'm the crew chief, you're my two man. You're my trusted two man.
All right, good.
That's good too.
All right, beautiful. So I do want to welcome everybody, and we are going to be talking quite a bit about umpires. And so usually on these Zoom meetings, my wingman, Saul Wisnia, who unfortunately was tied up tonight, couldn't be here. He usually will try to goad me into like maybe starting with some sort of a heartfelt poem of some sort, because my notoriety is that I apparently have the largest collection of baseball poetry of the dead ball era in the entire world, but then again, who else would do it? So, I mean, it's a very narrow field, a very implied taste. But anyway, but I do have it, and I have found it to be quite interesting because it does tell a lot about baseball and literature and all that. So, and what Saul would always want me to do is come up with some sort of a poem, and I just have this really nice one for you, Dale. I think that you'll kind of like this one, though. The title on this poem from 1915, it was in the Boston American, written by William F. Kirk. The title is The Mother's Moan. And in parentheses, the subtitle is Being Another Pathetic Ballad. Seems appropriate. Okay, here goes. A fine old-fashioned mother whose hair was turning gray was sitting in her parlor at the close of one long day. And just while she was sitting there, the door flew open wide. "We want your son to umpire," a big fat magnate cried. "We want your son to umpire, for we think his word is true. And if perchance they kill him, we will bury him for you." The fine old-fashioned mother looked the magnate in the eye, and after careful thinking, she did reply. "I didn't raise my son to be an umpire. I didn't raise my boy to be a goat. I do not want my child to be cussed in accents wild, or have a pitcher crawling down his throat. I'm glad you think my boy is true and honest. And here's one thing to paste into your hat. I never raised my boy to be an umpire. Don't ever wish him any luck like that." The long years reeled upon their course, as long as years always do. That boy became a yeggman, and he was a good one too. His fine old-fashioned mother never dreams he is a crook, but often at his photograph she takes a loving look. "I'm glad he isn't president," she murmurs through her tears. "I'm glad he's not a bank cashier who might get 15 years. But most of all, I'm glad he's not an umpire worn in gray. He might have been an umpire, but for these words I did say." And I won't sing the chorus again.
Yeah, my mother didn't want me to be an umpire either.
There you go.
That wasn't her lifelong ambition for you?
No.
What was it, Dale? I never asked.
My mother said I should have gone into advertising. And in a way I did, because I tried to sell all my calls.
That's right.
So there you go.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, Dale, I first met you, I think I interviewed you in 2015.
Okay.
You were crew chief visiting Fenway Park, and I was starting this book called the SABR Book of Umpires and Umpiring. And you and I can't remember, Dan Iasogna was on the group.
Right.
I can't remember who else right now. You told me you got into umpiring because you loved baseball, but you were, in effect, you didn't use this word, a zero tool player.
I think zero's being nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That you couldn't run, you couldn't field, you couldn't hit, you couldn't throw, but you loved baseball. You first were a top 40 DJ, I guess, for a while.
Right.
Began doing some umpiring and ended up I guess your dad drove a linen company,
He
linen
worked
supply
at
company
a commercial linen supply company. Yeah.
truck, and then became the VP of sales and service for the company.
Right.
And your mother did some work in retail, women's boutiques and
Correct.
part-time work, but you did some officiating in other sports as well,
Yes.
basketball and football, I guess.
Yes.
But your first umpiring experience, I looked it up today, was one game in 1985.
But I was really good.
Okay, and they brought you back because they had you work 116 games in 1986. And 33 years in all, American League umpire, and then after the two leagues combined, Major League umpire, only retired relatively recently after, I guess, a couple of concussions in
4 of them. Yeah.
2017, or at the end of 2016, and then into 2017. I did notice, looking on RetroSheet, that you ejected 89 people in those 33 years. That's not that many, a little more than 2 a year. Well, not
Right.
quite.
Right. It sounds worse than it is.
Yeah, it does. But you got a few Boston managers in there: Joe Morgan, Jimmy Williams, Terry Francona. Saw some names on the list, but there's 3,897 games you worked, I guess.
Yeah. It's a lot of games. I can't imagine. I mean, when I see that every time, it was just short of 4,000, but I thought, how did I do that? Especially the way I feel now since I'm old.
Well, you're not as old as some of us. In any event, you've got this new book. I got a copy of it several weeks ago that you worked on with Rob Neyer. I first met Rob. I think the first time we met Rob was at Fenway when you were, I can't remember the year now, but you decided to go to every single game all year long.
2000. That's right.
2000. Okay. I'm working on that now. I've got the first 27 games I've been to. I haven't missed one yet, but it's a curse. I don't know if I want to break the curse so I can be free and come or go, but
yes, it did become a burden after a couple of months. Like, I have to go tonight. Can I just take one night off? And
right.
My editor's answer was, no, you cannot take one night off. And then my editor's answer a few months later was, I really don't like this book. I'm not going to publish it. So I probably shouldn't have listened to him.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us about the new book by Dale Scott with Rob Neyer? One or you, both of you, however you wish to do it, take it away for 10 or 15 minutes or whatever. Tell us why you did the book, what's in the book, and we'll eventually open it up to questions, of course.
Well, I will tee Dale. That's not the right word. I will tee him up. I'm just so thrilled and thanks for holding it up, to be a part of this, to see my name on the cover. It's such a great honor. I, like probably everybody who's here now, I grew up reading baseball books and loving baseball books and loving baseball history. And I read so many, especially as I became a young adult, barely, and would read basically anything I could find about baseball. And of course, one of the things you find when you start delving into the publishing history of baseball are all of the books written by baseball personalities with writers. And like many of us, I sort of realized early on that there was a certain writer, and I guess I have stage fright, I'm forgetting the name, who wrote the book with Leo DeRocher back in the 70s, and a number of others, including one with an umpire. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Somebody step in and help me here. It's going to pop in a second. Yes, Ed Lynn. Thank you, Ed Lynn. So it was pretty clear to me that Ed Lynn was sort of the class of that type. He also wrote the books with Bill Veeck, which of course are just tremendous. So, like, if you make a list of the 100 best baseball books, 2 or 3 or 4 of them are going to be books that Ed Lynn worked on with other people. And I always wondered for decades, could I do something like that? Not be as good as Ed Lynn, because he's the best. You can't. I'm not ambitious enough to aspire to that level of greatness. But I also thought that I could do something maybe that was fit well within that genre and would be a worthy part of that tradition. I never knew if I could could do it, but I wanted to try. And I was very fortunate that Dale allowed me to be a part of this project. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's as good as an Ed Lynn book because I'm not that good, but I do think that I did what I wanted to do. I think I created a book that people will enjoy and will come back to in the coming years. And so I'm pretty happy with how everything turned out. And I'm, again, grateful to Dale for letting me do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I'm grateful for you to even bringing it up because, quite frankly, as Rob knows, I had no intention of writing a book when I retired. I had been told for years before I retired and after, oh, you got to write a book. You got to write a book. When I would tell all these baseball stories that I had. But a lot of umpires have written books when they've retired, and they're cute and they're entertaining and there's some great stories, and a lot of it's true. But I just wasn't. I just really didn't want to do that. But Rob helped convince me that I had, yes, I've got the baseball stories. I've got 30 plus years, almost 40 years of professional baseball. You're going to have stories. And there's some really, really good ones and ones that are very, very memorable. But I have a completely other story in my personal story and my personal journey that took place, along with, my career. And when I came out in 2014, I had hundreds of messages, emails that I received, and they were so positive, and so many people, because of hearing my journey and my story, gave them the courage to change their lives, to maybe come out or get closer to that. As some people said, I'm not quite there yet, but I'm another step closer to that closet door. Thank you very much. I remember a father in Toronto wrote me and said, congratulations. I'm so grateful that you've done this because I'm hoping that the society that my two daughters are growing up in will be such that this won't even be a story. It's, someday, and which is my goal also. But when I heard all that in 2014, it was very heartwarming and very, it really touched me. A lot of the stories touched me. So that combined with everybody telling me to write a book and Rob saying that, you do have two stories, the baseball story and the personal story, and they're both very compelling, got me to thinking that maybe I should write a book. I also had been told that just things that I've written, posts or things that I've sometimes written about politics and got myself in a lot of trouble, but I had been told that, hey, you're a pretty good writer. I mean, the way you put things down and it's concise and people understand it and this and that and this and that. So, and that kind of intrigued me to do that. So all these combinations got myself to change my mind and I told Rob, I said, well, if I do this, are you going to help me? And we're conveniently, we live in the same city, that's just a coincidence, but yes, he said he would be happy to do that, and then we were off on our little adventure, which took almost a year before we started writing, actually, because we were shopping it around, looking for an agent and a publisher.
And by the way, what a great coincidence! When I first connected with Dale, I had no idea that he lived in Portland. I was looking for someone to help me with my previous book, Powerball, to fill in some blanks that I had in terms of different subjects that I wanted to touch on in that book. And I don't remember exactly how. I think I reached out to Billy Bean at MLB, not Billy Bean with the A's. Billy Bean at MLB, by the way, wrote a fantastic foreword for this book, and I'm grateful to him. But I think Billy Bean connected me with Dale, and Dale and I just happened to be down in the Phoenix area at the same time during spring training. Dale was not working, I believe, at that point. I think it was his first spring when he wasn't working, but he was down there visiting.
First one off, yeah.
I was down there doing interviews for my book, and Dale was gracious enough to meet with me. And that's when we found out that we both live, and basically nobody lives in Portland in the baseball world. They live someplace warm and sunny. There's pretty much me,
right,
and Dale and Jim Joyce. It's pretty much us three. So just a complete stroke of good luck, because I'm fairly sure that Dale and I wouldn't probably have connected to. Well, I know we wouldn't have because of the circumstances to do this book if we didn't both live in Portland. So, I've said this hundreds of times over the years. At so many points in my career, I have been outrageously lucky, and this is just maybe the latest example.
How has the book been received? You did a book signing yesterday, Dale?
Yeah, unfortunately, Rob couldn't make it, but the Powell's here in Portland is, very well known.
Yeah.
And the opportunity to do a book signing there was very exciting to do. And so, yes, we did that last night. I've done a lot of promotion stuff for this because I've enjoyed it. I've a lot of podcasts and things. But I got to tell you, I don't know what the numbers are, but I can tell you that the feedback from people that have read this book has been really positive. They've enjoyed the stories, they enjoyed the personal part of the journey. The compliments I keep getting is people that have known me or I've been to some of the umpire clinics I've done, so they've heard me speak and stuff. And they said, this one guy said, Dale, I swear to God, I felt like I was sitting in a bar across the table from you, drinking a beer as you were telling me these stories, which I think is a very nice compliment, right? And certainly what Rob was striving to do, working with me. I remember he told me early when we started, because I was starting to write the chapter about growing up and my family and things. And Rob said, yeah, write, because the more I read of how you write, I hear your voice. I'm going, as a writer with me, he wants to write in my voice. He wants to sound like me. And I think he achieved that for sure. And so the feedback that we've gotten so far has been really, really good. And so I'm very encouraged by that.
And I would just add that this is, I've also said this many times, I consider this Dale's book, and I'm just lucky to have my name on the cover, but it does show up on my, list of works at Amazon or wherever. And this is, give or take my 8th book. And thanks to Dale, this is easily the best reviewed book at Amazon or Goodreads or wherever you find those sorts of reader responses. So yeah, I've been very gratified by how people have enjoyed it. And Dale's right. It's been really gratifying for me to read people saying that they feel like they're with Dale, just having a conversation. And that's exactly what I wanted people to feel as they read it. And by the way, there will be an audio version, it looks like, before too terribly long. My hope is that Dale gets to be the narrator. But if he does, then it will literally be Dale reading this book to you, and he would be great. And then we'll just take that whole layer of Rob and paper out of the whole thing. You'll just be sitting across from Dale, or you'll be sitting in your car, and there's Dale right there with you.
That was probably the most asked question ever since this thing came out is, will there be an audiobook? And I frankly, I didn't know. And I didn't know how that all, this is all new to me, this publishing and this kind of stuff. But with my 5.5 years of radio background and voiceover stuff I've done, and I would be insulted if I wasn't the one reading it, quite frankly.
Yeah, it would be pretty ridiculous if they don't choose you. The professional got the professional voice to read his own book. So yeah, that's pretty hard to imagine.
You do have a better radio voice than some of us.
Well, and the thing is, just for a little slice, a little example, on my website, umpiredalescott.com, I read 4 excerpts from the book. They're about 2 minutes long or something, but that just gives you, in reading those, I was reading a conversation I had with George Brett, my very first game in '85. Just reading it, I read it like I would be telling the story to you now. And I shouldn't say some other reader couldn't do that, but I know the stories. They're my stories. So I just think it would be semi-insane if I wasn't doing it.
Right. That was a really nice story about how you came out onto the field for your first game, and George Brett asked you a question and you were like standoffish. You didn't know, what's he doing here? Tell the story.
Yeah. Well, in 1985, it was my first full year in AAA, and I was under option with the American League, and all that meant was the National League couldn't touch me. It doesn't mean you're going to get a job or anything like that. But I got a call. It was right after my birthday, which is August 14th. I got a call, I think it was the next day, from Dick Butler, who was the head of the American League umpires at that time. And he said, listen, on Monday, August 19th, you are in Omaha. You're going to fly to Kansas City and work one game. It's a makeup game. The Tigers and Royals are both coming in. It's supposed to be an off day, but they both lost the off day. They're coming in to make up this game, and then they're both leaving. And the crew, Jim Evans' crew, which was also supposed to be an off day, they're coming in for that one game, and then they're heading to Oakland. So he said, you're going to work one game, you'll be at third base, and then right back to Omaha. I said, oh, I'm thrilled. This is the call. This is my shot at my first regular season American League game. And so I flew to Kansas City. I was very excited, very nervous. It was in the locker room. Jim Evans, if anybody knows me, very dry sense of humor. Jim had or has, and I was also with Ted Hendry and Dan Morrison. But we're in the locker room, and of course, I just brought my bass stuff because no reason to bring my whole trunk and all my equipment, all that stuff. So Jim asked me, so you're nervous? I said, no, Jim, I'm not nervous. Well, I was, but I did. I'm acting real confident. And I was putting on my T-shirt that I have underneath my umpire shirt, and I didn't realize it. Jim looks at me and goes, I can tell, he said, do you always, put your T-shirt on backwards? And I looked down, I had put my T-shirt on backwards. So I immediately, without skipping a beat, I just said, well, yes, Jim, I always do that. I set the trends, and I felt like an idiot. So I took it off, put it back on correctly. And I said, yeah, maybe I am a little nervous. So anyway, we go out onto the field, and we have the Tigers who had just won the World Championship the year before, and we have the Royals who are going to win the World Championship that fall. Of course, we don't know that yet. And so two pretty good teams. And the managers come out, and of course they first thing, hey, Dale, how are you? And shake my hand and stuff. No, I'm thinking to myself, man, they know my name. That's really cool. Well, of course they know my name. They got it in the dugout listed on the, it wasn't like they had, it's pretty easy for them to figure that out. But anyway, it impressed me. We did the lineup exchange, and the managers left, and so we run out to our positions here, and here come the Royals to warm up. And so now I'm out there in that beautiful stadium in Kansas City, Kauffman Stadium at that time. It's gorgeous, and so I'm just kind of looking around, taking it all in. Part of it was just like, my goodness, 10 years ago I just started umpiring when I was 15, and here I am. What am I doing here? But all of a sudden that was interrupted quickly when I heard, hey, Dale. And I looked down, and here's George Brett. He's looking at me. I said, well, hey, George. And I'm thinking, man, he knows my name too. That's cool. And he goes, your first game? And I instinctively, I looked down at my pants like I had a wet spot. I thought, I looked back up. I said, is it that obvious? He starts laughing. He says, no, I hadn't seen you before. He said, welcome to the American League. And thanks, George. And I was like, well, man, of course, now it's time to play baseball. And I ended up a 10-inning game. The Royals won, but I had two calls all game at third base. I had a check swing where, ironically, I called George Brett out on a check swing. And then I had in the 10th, in the bottom of the 10th, it was a double down the line that went the third baseman just off his glove, just tipped his glove. And of course I'm calling a fair ball. And those are my two calls. The next year I was hired as a full-time American League umpire. So I only had one game before I was hired full-time, but I tell everybody, I was really good in that game. I mean, I must have been just so spectacular to only have one game and get hired. But no, that was my first experience. My first regular season game in the big leagues. And it was a thrill for sure.
Chris Guccione worked over 1,000 games before he got hired as a major league umpire.
Yeah, it's what happened to me is crazy. It's not the norm. That's the exception for sure. A little bit different time and the way they do things now, but certainly that's not normal.
That's how you got to get in 3,897 games at such a young age.
Right. And it's also, as I say in the book, why I struggled so badly in my second year, especially because I didn't have that opportunity to maybe work myself into a experience. Nowadays a lot of guys will go up and down, and they get the exposure and experience in the big leagues, but then they can take a deep breath and maybe spend a week in the minor leagues before they go back up again or whatever, and they do that for a while. Now I just never had that opportunity. I'm not complaining at all, but it was a different way of things happening.
Well, the average guy now works maybe 6 or 7 years up and down,
Right.
and long years too. They don't work 120 game seasons. They might work 140, 150 games.
Right.
There is a strange, the most bizarre thing about that, Bill, I think, I suspect this would shock baseball fans if they knew. There are, quote, minor league umpires, unquote, who work more major league games in a season than the major league umpires work.
Yep.
Because they haven't been hired as full timers. So they're still officially minor leaguers, but they don't get any vacation time like the major league guys do.
Right.
So they work more games in the major leagues. It's the strangest thing. Maybe Dale can explain to me why there's this incredible bar to entry from the Major League Umpires Association, if that's a union thing or an MLB thing, but it's a very odd thing to see.
Well, it's more of an MLB thing, and there's different reasons for that. Sometimes, for example, let's just say that one of the full-time umpires is hurt and basically is going to miss the whole season. That means there's going to be a AAA guy up the whole season. Now they may cut that time. They may have a guy up for 2 months and then another guy 2 months, and so they can see him and get the experience and watch them, evaluate them and everything. Or they've done it both ways. Or they'll have one guy up that's just been up all year, and he's a minor league guy that'll be up all year, has no big league rights, so to speak, as far as union stuff like the vacation time or stuff. Although sometimes they will give them a week off when the crew's off, which is awful nice of them. But yeah, that's exactly right. They will end up working more games than a big league guy that's healthy all year. And it's just a strange, strange kind of thing, the way the system works right now.
They do get paid big league scale though, so that makes up for some of those years that they were.
Well, yeah, they're definitely making more money
much.
than they'd be in AAA. They get paid per game, and it's
Right.
prorated to the rookie salary. So yeah, yeah, they definitely, and of course they get all the benefits as far as per diem, and that's all the same.
Yep. So I think we want to turn it over to questions and answers from, well, not questions from various folks here, but I just had one other question that I wanted to kind of pose. The book, I think, reaches out to at least 2 different audiences. And have you had good reactions from what we might call, there's certainly an overlap, but there's at least 2 significant constituencies there. Have you had good reactions from both of them?
Yes. Yeah, I have. It's kind of funny. Some of my gay friends who, quite frankly, aren't real big baseball fans or sports fans.
Yeah.
He said, I really like your book. I didn't understand some of the stories. I wasn't quite sure who these people were or what exactly that was all about, but it seemed very exciting. But they certainly enjoyed and were interested in hearing how, some of the things I went through and living a double life, so to speak, and the things that I did, actively trying to hide who I was. And and then I've heard I'll be honest, I've heard, except for friends, I've heard mostly from baseball people or people that are baseball fans that just really enjoy a baseball book and hearing, a lot of people love to hear what's going on behind the curtain. When you're, when I talk about some of the stories and their ejections or that big brawl I had in Milwaukee or whatever. They enjoy hearing some of that stuff. The Tom Kelly chapter and where Tom's telling me not to laugh because he's arguing with me and it looks like he's chewing me a new one. Yeah. When in actuality, he's just disgusted that his runner can't run in the running lane. So, those types of things that people just don't hear very often, and they hear, and they enjoy that. But yeah, I have from both camps, so to speak.
Well, and I think fortunately for the book, Bill,
say that.
I think fortunately for the book,
yeah,
on the promotional side, Dale's done a fantastic job and the publicist that Dale engaged, fantastic job of sort of putting this in front of people in all sorts of different places. As Dale mentioned, lots of podcasts,
Yeah.
book signings, and at the same time, Dale is part of these incredible Pride Nights that some of the major league stadiums are actually almost all of them are putting on this summer. He was at this tremendously big event at Dodger Stadium. I guess that was what, Dale, just last week or the week before?
It was Friday, last Friday.
This Friday, he's in San Francisco.
This Saturday, yeah, Saturday.
This Saturday, which is going to be a tremendous event, signing books and meeting people. I don't know how many first pitches he's throwing out or how many on-field appearances he's making, but it's yeah, we're very fortunate. The hope, being frank, was always that we would be able to reach both of these audiences.
Sure.
Because they're two huge audiences, and if you can touch both of them, you can really reach a lot of people.
It'd be nice
Yeah.
to think that more people would get interested in baseball too.
Right.
That'd be lovely.
And you know, there's obviously the reviews and stuff, but I know of two, the Bay Area Reporter in San Francisco and the Washington Blade in DC are both gay papers that both have done reviews. The Bay Area Reporter is already out. The Blade is coming out, I think, this week because I'll be in DC on Tuesday for their Pride Night.
Bob Lemoyne, you wrote a lengthy question in the chat, and I think it's one that you should pose verbally if you don't mind coming off mute and just ask the question to Dale.
Sure. Thank you, Rob and Dale. I listen to the podcast of Rob quite often, and thank you, Dale. I am a high school librarian, and when I'm not doing what I love to do, which is SABR research and baseball nerdy stuff, I'm the Gay Straight Alliance advisor, and I'm curious what your perspective would be on high school students at that level. I'm trying to support students, and I'm curious of what your perspective would be of being in this role of trying to support LGBTQ students. Thank you.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I mean, things have changed so much since I've been in high school. I mean, you know, I've met so many people and you know, young in their 20s, early 20s, late teens, you know, that, you know, they realized who they were and have come out when they were, you know, teenagers or, you know, I mean, that just quite frankly didn't happen when I was at that age, or it happened so rarely that you know, it's just a different kind of thing. And you know, the you know, society and everything has moved forward so much since I, you know, got into umpiring, since I was in high school and beyond. You know, as I say, you know, in the podcast and stuff, and the reality was that when I first started in this job as a professional baseball umpire in the Northwest League in the A-ball, right out of umpire school in 1981, I literally had my first game 2 weeks after this, you know, these mysterious cancers were affecting young men in New York and San Francisco, which was the start of the AIDS epidemic. So I was paralleling that, you know, through my minor league career and forward. So it was a very, very different time. I mean, people were scared and didn't know how it was, you know, transmitted, and it was a quote unquote gay disease. And, you know, it just was, for those that don't remember or refresh their memories, the 80s was a mess for the gay community, and we lost a lot of people, and it just was a tough time. It's you know, now what you're dealing with, Bob, and I applaud you for being part of that alliance or heading the alliance or whatever your title is. But you know, there's so much. It's not just gay and straight anymore. I mean, you have gender fluidity, and you have trans you know, trans people and stuff. That it's a much more complex deal going on, and so I kind of feel like an old guy. I kind of feel like an old grandpa or something, because you know, some of this stuff is just you know, it's just so different and so much more so many more tentacles to us, if you will, to what used to be just really kind of a, you're either gay, straight, or bi, basically, is how it was. So I'm sure I would have to think, Bob, it's kind of been a challenge to try to stay up to date and try to understand all the different variables of this. I would guess.
Yeah, I was the advisor in years past, and now I have become advisor because of situations, one of the first things I want to do is help change the name of the group, because it has changed so much since when I did it back 5 or 6 years ago. But thank you for that. I appreciate it.
I don't know if I helped you on that, but I do understand this, and again, I applaud you for doing that.
I've got a question. I just
Go for it.
recently saw the play in New York City. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I just recently saw the play on Broadway, Take Me Out, which, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is about a gay player a star player who comes out in the major leagues, and the consequences of what happens after that. And it got me, it got me to thinking that here we are at 2022, and this play was written 20 years ago when it was first staged. And we still haven't had a major league player come out as gay publicly. I mean, we had Glenn Burke, who came out privately to some of his teammates, and maybe there are some others that we don't know about. But Dale, do you think that, are you surprised, number one, that no baseball player has come out? Because there have to have been some gay baseball players over the course of the game. And do you think that this is anything that you could see happening anytime in the near future, based upon your experiences in the game?
Well, David, I saw that on Broadway 20 years ago when it first came out, and I am surprised, quite frankly, that we haven't had a out player at the major league level. It will happen. It'll either be someone that's in the big leagues that comes out, or somebody that's maybe in the minor leagues that is out and makes it to the big leagues. I don't know. Baseball was very proactive, and in fact, the first major sport, when they hired Billy Beane in 2014, to have a position just for inclusion and for all of baseball, major and minor leagues, to have a resource and and really showing that everyone is welcome here, in professional baseball. That was early in 14 when they hired him. I came out late in 14, but I'm kind of surprised since then that we have not had somebody at the big league level. I mean, it's happened in the NBA, in the NFL, it's happened in soccer, in hockey, but we're still a little behind the 8 ball on that, and I'm not exactly sure why. And then we had this situation just this weekend with the Tampa players. It was 5 or 6 of them that tore off their little pride patch for their pride night, and I think that's that was it's too bad that happened. I don't know if management was under the impression that everybody was good with this and it wouldn't be a problem, or if they I can't imagine they knew that they were going to do that, because I don't know. Who knows the exactly what happened, but it's too bad it did. But I don't want that to overshadow the fact that the game I'm going to be at Saturday, the Dodgers Giants in San Francisco, for their pride, both teams will be their full uniforms will be pride uniforms for both teams, and the umpires will be wearing hats, the pride hats. Possibly not the plate man, because I can tell you, your plate hat, taking the mask on and off, you sometimes having a foreign hat is not good for that. I don't care if it's a pride hat or whatever. But the point is, baseball again has made great strides in this area, and there's only one team that doesn't have pride anymore, since Houston now has it, is the Texas Rangers. And I'm hopeful that they will start next year. I'm hoping, but I was just in Los Angeles. They sold almost 20,000 Pride ticket packages. I'm going to DC Tuesday. I think they've sold 6,000 or 7,000, which is very good. So it's too bad the incident in Tampa happened, but I don't want it to overshadow the fact that baseball has really come a long way in promoting inclusion and that everyone is welcome. And and I'm hopeful that maybe that is the story going forward, the main story going forward, as we kind of figure out how to deal with the Tampa situation. But I am surprised we don't have an out player.
Thanks.
Rob, did you want to say something?
Well, yes. Excuse me. I actually, and I'll try to keep this brief because I could go on and on. I wrote a long piece on this exact subject 5 or 6 years ago, probably. I spoke at that point. There were 2 out players in professional baseball, both of whom are now not playing pro ball. I spoke to them. I also spoke to Billy Beane. I believe I spoke to every other player who had come out after their pro careers, except Glenn Burke because he was not still living. So it was 6 or 7 players or ex-players. And I also spoke to 1 or 2 current major leaguers, not gay. I just want to get their take on what their thinking was, why it hadn't happened yet, or what the prospects were. And after writing that piece, I certainly thought we would have seen something by now, especially since there were 2 then. Now we're down to 0, by the way. We went from 2 to 0, which doesn't seem likely or even barely possible, but we did. For me, the upshot from my conversations, there were a couple of things. Baseball, more than any other sport, you are not encouraged to be an individual. You're not encouraged to be a story within your clubhouse or your team, especially if you're young. You're supposed to keep your mouth shut, not make any waves, do what the veterans tell you. So I think that's a factor. That's what I was told. Another, I think, is that within the culture of baseball, there are still a huge number of, for lack of a better term, and I know this isn't fair to use this term in particular, but old school coaches who do not, and one of the guys I talked to had heard all sorts of ugly language from one of his coaches, maybe multiple coaches. They didn't know he was gay. They just threw those things around. And as Dale can attest, having gone through that for a long time, that's not something for everybody. So I think there's this culture that discourages people from being open about that part of their life, coming all the way up from their kids and through high school and college or the minor leagues. I just think it's a tough thing. I certainly would have assumed that by now a great player would have come out in high school or college, and that's just it. It's done. You deal with me or you don't deal with me, but I'm gay and I'm going to keep playing ball and I'm going to get drafted and move up. And it is very surprising to me that has not happened yet. That as far as I know, there's not a single out player in Division I college baseball right now. Now I might have missed somebody, but certainly nobody who's been talked about as a draft prospect, or it would be a story, and it has not been. And I think that really is the answer. Nobody wants to be a story. They want people to focus on how good they are as a player, and they're just not willing to put themselves out there for good reasons.
I had an umpiring question. Dale, I had a spy at Powell's last night. I asked him if there was anything I should ask, and he was impressed by something you said. He said at one point you said something along the lines of umpiring being part science and part art. And he thought that was a question I should pose to you, what you meant by that, and maybe to elaborate a little bit for this audience here.
Yeah, well, it was in context of, I have said that we were talking last night in context of the automated strike zone and that, but I've always said officiating in general, but we're talking about baseball. It's part science and it's part art. And the science part is the nuts and bolts of, the rules and and that, that's the foundation of the game and all that. But the art is the official taking those rules and applying them to that level of baseball in that situation. For a simple example would be, by rule, your base coach is supposed to be in the coaching box.
Yeah.
But we all know that, we don't enforce that unless the other team says, hey, we think he's stealing signs or whatever. So, okay, now we're going to make both teams stay in the coaching box, for the rest of the year. And in my career, I've had a manager ask me to do that maybe 3 times in all those games. I think LaRusso was 2 of them. It might have been. That's a simple way of showing that yes, that's a rule. That's the science of it. But the art of it is you just, you're not going to make them do that unless there's an issue. Another example of that we don't have anymore because of the slide rule at second. But when you used to be able to break up double plays, there would be times, not as many as people thought, but there would be times that the middle infielder that's doing the pivot might not have been on the base right when he had the ball, but was given credit for an out. Now, the reason that would happen, first of all, you didn't award bad throws or bad timing. If the guy came across the bag and then caught the ball a step on the other side because the timing was wrong, that's not going to fly. Or if a throw takes him off the base, you're not going to award him that. But if the timing's there and they're doing it, and maybe, and like I said, it happened less than what people thought because these guys were really good and they could, they did. It's not like you have to stomp your foot on the bag. You just have to barely touch the ball, the bag when you have possession of the ball. So, but anyway, there were times that they were not technically on there, but they were given outs. Why? Because both teams like their middle infielders and they don't want them to get killed. And so they accepted that, right? At that level. I'm not saying that's accepted in high school. I'm not saying it's accepted in, little league or whatever, but in our league at that level, it was accepted. And so you are using the art of officiating to allow that because, it's at that level of play. So we were talking about the automated zone. And the problem, there's a few that I foresee, but, one of them is if a pitch by rule goes over any part of the plate, of course, that's a 3-dimensional zone, and it's within the high-low of the hitter, it is to be ruled a strike. So, by rule, if a pitch is at the very front edge of the plate on the very outside corner, and remember, the plate's 17 inches wide, the ball is almost 3 inches in diameter. And if any part of the ball goes over any part of the plate, that means the plate basically is 23 inches wide. I mean, if you think about it, because not quite, but then pretty close. So you could have a pitch that's just nicking the front edge of the plate, the very outside edge of the zone that is moving out away from the hitter and is moving down toward, and let's say it's right at the knees and it's moving toward the ground. The catcher catches the pitch, a couple inches up above the ground and a couple inches wide of the plate. By rule, that's a strike. Rarely does an umpire call that a strike because it's just really not accepted as a strike. Okay, that's the art of umpiring at that level. So a machine, automated system, is only going to do what it's programmed to do. And that would call, program to call that a strike. And technically it's correct, but it doesn't, catchers coming around here and it's just not accepted. Now, I think to take this little step further, and I don't have, this is just my theory. This is just my opinion, but I think when they finally go to the automated strike zone in the big, bring it up to the big leagues, and they're going to do it. They want to, and it's going to happen. I think they might have to redefine and just kind of tweak the definition of a strike. How, I don't know, but I think right now the definition of a strike and what the automated zone does, there's going to be, I think, some discrepancies that people are not going to like. Again, I don't know if this is fact. This is just my opinion that this might occur. But yes, there is a science and there's an art to officiating, and the art part is experience, is knowing the level of play that you're doing, and using that. The rules are there, and using that in the common sense and in the level that you're working to make everything flow correctly. And sometimes that might mean you don't take a rule black and white, rigid. It's this or that, and it can't be anything else. It's interpreted.
I did
Well,
remember.
I think that when people talk about the human element, there seems to be this sort of dichotomy. Either you want the human element or you think it's terrible. And the right answer probably is, let's keep the human element when it's useful, makes the game better, and get rid of it when it doesn't make the game better. But a lot of people have difficulty with that sort of subtlety. Bill, do you mind if I ask Dale something?
No, go ahead.
Because for those who don't know, I was supposed to join Dale at Powell's last night here in Portland, the world's greatest bookstore, or at least the world's greatest bookstore that's within 8 miles of my house. And I was not able to attend because I was finishing up a COVID quarantine. But one thing that we didn't put in the book, in part because it wouldn't have really worked out, it wouldn't have worked so well in print, but also because I was too stupid to think of it, is a question about Dale's strike mechanic, which has always fascinated me. Now, we've probably all seen these pictures or films of umpire school where they have like 15 or 20 or 30 umpires on a field, and they are all doing exactly the same mechanic with their arms. I'm sure Bill's seen this. And Dale, I've been wanting to ask you, if you had a mechanic before you got there, learned the school mechanic, and then went back to what you were doing when you got off on your own again, or if you developed a whole new one. If so, how you did that, what was going through your mind, and also, could you show us?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yep, sorry.
I had my own mechanic. It certainly wasn't just the robotic fist hit the wall mechanic that they teach you at umpire school. One of the reasons at umpire school they teach you all the same. Everybody does the same mechanic stuff. It's because you're evaluating 100 plus guys, and so you want everything more uniform, so to help you with that, in doing that. But if you are chosen and get into minor league baseball, they almost immediately, well, at least they used to. I'm not sure if they do now, but they almost immediately, I think they do to a degree now, but say that, okay, now develop some personality into your mechanics. They don't want you to go crazy and go goofy and something stupid, and they'll let you know if they think that. But they almost immediately do away with the robotic one, or at least give you the license to show some personality. I had a whatever mechanic I had, but going to umpire school, I was told, or a guy talked me into going that had been there before. So he kind of let me know what they're going to, they're going to teach you, what to expect, and that kind of stuff. So I had that kind of a heads up thing going on. After I got out of school and got into professional baseball, I had, in the minor leagues, I had several mechanics that I look back on my Northwest League mechanic my first year, and I cringe because it was like if you remember the umpire Satch Davidson of the National League, he used to have a long voice. And my first year in the Northwest League, I was like, I was, it was like a foghorn or something. And I thought it was kind of cool. And then, and I think it was kind of cool. Like lime green was cool for about an hour and a half in the 70s, so that was kind of how that worked out. So then I shortened that voice up a little bit and shortened everything up. What I have been quote unquote famous for the last, decade or so, or if not longer of my career, was a distinctive strike call, but my strike three, where I would go the other way and kind of do a punch out. I'm trying to remember the third baseman for the Astros back in the early 2000s.
Not Caminiti?
No, it was after him. Anyway, he played there a few years, but he came up, he said his first at bat, he looked at me, he goes, "My goal today is for you not to punch me." And because when I did my strike three, it was almost like I was just going boom. And I'll be damned about the third at bat, I got him out on strikes. He looked at me, he goes, "Damn it." It was like I was so close. The game's almost over and I almost got through. But what I was known for, and that and many people have said, man, I love your strike three, and this and that. Well, umpires say a lot of umpires say that, is that it was a combination of things. It was a combination of my personality plus a little bit of Davy Phillips and a little bit of Rocky Rowe. I mean, guys that I work with, guys that I like to, you pick a little this here and a little this there. There's certain guys that you say, okay, I would never do that. That's not me. That's not something I'm going to do. And then you just kind of, if you're comfortable with it and stuff, and then you just start doing it and developing it. And yes, we do it in mirrors.
I was going to ask.
Yes, we do it. Absolutely. We do some practice calls in the mirror just to see if it looks goofy or not. And
it would look goofy in the mirror.
Well, the actual mechanic doesn't look goofy. What looks goofy is you in a mirror doing it. Is what looks goofy.
Exactly. I'd love some film of that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that's how that kind of developed.
I guess Tom Hallion has one of the most dramatic ones these days.
Tom Hallion puts me in traction every time I see him call strike three. I mean, I don't know, Tom's a year or two older than me, and I don't know. That there's a lot of G-force and stuff going on there. I mean, maybe maybe he has a chiropractor that just, that travels with him. I don't know.
It's funny you mentioned about the coach's box. I had a discussion with somebody, I think it was last year, as to whether we could watch a whole game and whether the coach was ever in the coach's box.
Well, that's true. And they kind of loosened that, by the way. It used to be, a rectangular box. Now, the only lines that really make any that they're concerned about is the line closest to that goes perpendicular to the baseline, closest to the plate, and then the line that it parallels the foul line closest to the base. So, they don't want you to cross that on either side, but you could basically be as deep as you want the other ways. And now it's not even a box anymore. It's just those two lines.
There are a couple people asked questions. 3 people, I think. Adam, Kirk, and Karen all had questions. Maybe one of you like to speak up? You have to unmute yourself, of course. And Mark Cantor, you had a question too, if you want to get yours in.
Yeah, Dale. When they decided to not have collisions at second base anymore, the one thing that concerned me, and it still concerns me, a guy slides into second, and I think by the physics of his body, whatever, he slides into second, he tries to keep his hands on the base, or he tries to keep his foot on the base, but for a split second, his foot comes up. And I think the physics of sliding, sometimes feet come up, boom, he's tagged out. And yet I always felt that in fact would probably almost have never been called before we had this rule. And I always felt that we should have almost that maybe second and third, the base itself should go like infinitely into the sky. Almost like a football goal post, because I think that there's something innately crazy going on here, trying to keep your foot on the bag and you're still trying to slide. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, that is an unintended circumstance, not of the slide rule, but of replay. That's why that's happening, and that is when you change something, replay was to correct obvious misses, and And it's done that for the most part. But unintended consequences also occur. And one of them is this cheap out that people get. You know, a guy hits a sure double, he slides and he's safe. I mean, it's not really a play, but the ball is coming in. And, you know, you see the fielders now, they keep the tag on them. They keep the glove right on them the whole time, because now that used to happen before replay, but it was so minute and so small that it was not, I mean, no one ever expected it out there. Now, sometimes a guy did come farther off, and that's a different story. But the things that you're talking about is, you know, just barely off his momentum and stuff. It's not an out of control slide where he you know, that he slid off the base or whatever because he was out of control. These are bona fide good slides. They're safe, and he pops up and he just comes up off the bag. Well, they've found out that if we have replay, and it's obvious when you look at the replay, yes, he's off the bag. It's not by far, but he's definitely off the bag and the glove is on him. You know, what do you got to do? That's an out. I mean, by rule, that's an out. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, I had a couple times where, you know, I had a steal play, or a, you know, stretching a single into a double into treble, whatever, you know, safe. We're all going about our business, and all of a sudden I see the defensive manager. Hey, Dale, I want to look at that. I want to look at that. I'm going, look at, you know, I'm thinking, look at what? And sure as heck, we go there, and the guy's a little bit off. So, and we have we have to call him out. I mean, we can't, you know, just say he didn't come off because it's obvious. So that's an unintended circumstance of replay. I don't know how to correct that. I mean, maybe they could say, you know, maybe of course you could throw judgment at the umpire, but maybe you could say if it's not because of the slide, it's not an uncontrolled slide, or it's not because, you know, that it's a you know, you know, I don't know how you'd word it to maybe correct that. I don't know. As far as I know, there's no discussions to correct that. But you know, that's another thing about the automated strike zone, is what are some of the unintended you know, things that could happen with that. And I kind of brushed on that earlier, is the fact that you could have a pitch that looks, you know, horrendous, and certainly is could be deemed practically, you know, really unhittable, but it's a strike. And most of the time a human wouldn't call that. And let me say one more thing about the automated zone. Again, this is I've heard other people talk about this, and the more I've heard about it, the more I'm thinking maybe this is a nice compromise to not having the automated zone every single pitch for every single play. You know, there's a thought out there, or I've heard, you have the human umpire calling pitches, but you give the manager 2 challenges, or you give him 2 challenges before the 7th, and then from the 7th on, he gets 2 more. So I don't know how, you know, that could be worked out. But in other words, let the game flow like it's flowing. Let the guy, you know, call his game. Let him throw, you know, pitches and do all that stuff, and not have any of this stuff. But if there's a key pitch that they don't like, that they want to challenge, we can challenge it. Now the debate is, well, here we go again. We have to stop the game and this and that. Well, okay, yeah, that's true. This would cause that to happen. But to me, it's keeping the you know, because they're hell bent on getting this thing up there, and we're not going to outrun technology. So to me, it's a way of keeping the game kind of like the way it is, and then you throw in just a little bit of technology here and there for those times that they really think they want to challenge a pitch. Will it work? I don't know. The other thing I have, I've never heard the answer to this question, because they've tried, and they're doing in AAA right now. They're doing this automated zone. You know, you have a plate umpire who is going down on every pitch just like he's going to call it with an earpiece, and then calling whatever he is told to call. But if for some reason there's a glitch on that particular pitch, then he's supposed to call it himself. Well, let me tell you, as an umpire, that's the tough thing to do, to focus on every single pitch, not knowing if you'll ever call one. But if you do have to call one, what all of a sudden it's a 3-2 pitch in the 9th with the bases loaded. You know, we had a glitch. Go ahead. You know.
Well, and what if you come up through the minor leagues not calling pitches, right? I mean, all of a sudden, now you're going to call a pitch.
Very good point. Very good point. But besides that fact, which I think is just, I don't think anyone has ever, if you've never umpired, I mean, that's just a tough thing to make a guy do. But besides that, runners at first and second, less than 2 outs, 3-2 pitch. They're running. The catcher, doesn't want to throw down if it's ball 4, but you got a nut cutter pitch. The runners are running. There's got to be a slight little delay of some sort for this communication to come from upstairs to this umpire. Any type of delay of any sort is going to screw up the timing of a catcher and a guy trying to throw out base runners. Does he throw it every time just in case? Well, that way now all of a sudden, that was ball 4, but now you just threw it into left field, and then you would not have thrown it if you had known it was ball 4. Whatever. I just don't understand the timing, how this has happened when they've been using this automated system. Because even though that communication might be really quick, I don't think it can be quicker than having an umpire behind the catcher making the call. So that's just a question that I have not heard any answer to yet.
Well,
Yeah,
my question is, I have been reading Breaking into Baseball about women in baseball. And I was wondering, how do you feel about women umpires?
Well, I worked with Pam Postema when I had instructional league with her in 1983. When I was in after my AA season, and I worked a couple spring training games with her in 1988 in the Orlando area. Pam, I got along with Pam great. I like Pam. What do I think about women umpire? I have no issues with women umpire. The problem is there are very few that even go to umpire school, and then just to get out of umpire school, even fewer than that. And I don't now. Pam was a different era, okay, and I think there was certainly much more politics involved about her going to the big leagues, or the chance of it, when she was in AAA, and she worked big league spring training for both leagues. But nowadays, I don't think you have nearly, if at all, that equation into it. It's just that there just hasn't been anybody that's even gotten very far to get in into consideration to get up to the big leagues. There have been some minor league women umpires. And I don't know, after Pam got to AAA, I could be wrong. I don't think any other woman's got to AAA, maybe AA, but that's been it. But the first thing they do almost every year at umpire school, when the big league guys are finding out about the classes, are there any women, and if there are, do they have a shot? I mean, are they legitimate, have a shot? Again, it will happen. I don't know when, but of course we're already behind the 8 ball again. Football's happened, basketball's happened. But baseball, the officiating, how you get to where you go through the minor league system and umpire school is a completely different working model than the other sports. And so I think you can, the other sports has the advantage where they can kind of pick out of college ranks or something and develop them, where right now, unless they change the model, baseball totally relies on whoever goes to umpire school and comes out of umpire school. And so that's been one of the hurdles.
Okay, I was thinking of Penny Barber.
Yeah,
Very Barber.
Penny Barber.
right. And she's umpired a zillion games, and I don't know her. I don't know how she came out evaluation wise, and that kind of stuff. But if me personally, I have no issue with a female umpire. I mean, Pam was the only one that I actually worked with and was around, and we had a lot of laughs. Pam and we got along great. I mean, she did Pam, when I worked with her in some exhibition games, her plate work was really good. I mean, she was solid behind the plate. On the bases at times, I'm not sure if her instincts were as good as they could have been. And rotations and stuff. I'm not saying it was bad. It just wasn't as sharp, but her plate work was very sharp.
I believe there is a couple in Canada now, a couple women umpiring in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
At relatively high professional level.
Right. I mean, I think there are, maybe I'm naive, but I don't think if a woman umpire went to umpire school and had the talent to move up through the ranks, she wouldn't be stopped because she was a woman. I just don't believe that would happen nowadays. Now when Pam was
Right.
working, that was a different time.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've gone over, as we always do. I don't know how much more time our guests actually have here, but I'm sure a few more minutes.
Sure.
There were a couple other questions. Adam, you had a question about this new practice of umpires announcing calls after replay consideration. Do you want to ask the question? Or shall I?
Morgan Ensberg was the third baseman.
I'll ask the question that Adam wrote. It said, are you a fan of umpires having to announce calls to the fans via microphone?
Okay, let me just go on record to say I'm very bitter that I didn't get a chance to do that.
Yeah.
I would have loved to do that. I am quite frightened on some of the crew chiefs that we have of talking on a microphone. But Dan Isonia, good friend of mine. We worked over 1,000 games together. I remember, and I had a running joke throughout, my whole time in baseball, not only when I was a crew chief, but I'd always give the radio voice. I'd always make it, like in the locker room, I would joke around and that kind of stuff. And guys I worked with would kind of incorporate that, so we were the radio crew or whatever. And so Danny, when they were going to do announcements starting in 2020, of course that season got blown up, so it never happened and was delayed. But before COVID hit in like January and February, MLB actually had crew chiefs and two men of the crews go to a stadium that was in Florida and Arizona and wherever to practice announcing with the echoes and the things that some of these stadiums have, to know where to look and where they're supposed to be looking at or looking toward. And they also had a full book of verbiage, how they're supposed to say things and this and that. And I remember Danny then when they were getting ready, and then of course it didn't happen. And then Danny this year, he called me a few times. He said, okay, this is what I'm supposed to say. Now, should I pause right here, or where do I pronounce this? Should I do, sounded like a voice, like I was a voice coach or something. I think it's great that they're announcing stuff. A lot of times I think it's going to be pretty basic stuff. You have a force play at first, the ground, he's either out or saved. That's nothing fancy about it. It's just after review, the ball did beat him, he's out or whatever. But those times that you're awarding runners, or you have spectator interference, or you have a obstruction, or you have something that's a little out of the ordinary that can be confusing to people, I think it's good that they're able to do that. And yes, I'm bitter. I wish I could do that myself. I think it would have been great.
They're all being done without drama, which is, I think, the way you have to play it.
Right. Yeah. It's not a time to to editorialize. But some guys talk too fast. Just slow down. Just give your announcement and move on. But yeah.
Any other questions? We haven't lost anybody, but some people seem to be reluctant to speak out or come up with questions here.
Well, I can add just one thing. I think maybe every now and then, just to keep people on the edge of their seats, I think that the umpires should announce it in Spanish every now and then, just to throw people off.
Well, you know what? We've got some guys that can. Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that'd be great.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's one thing about, when I was in school and we had a Spanish class, like in junior high and stuff. And I didn't try. I was not, and boy, could I have used that skill when I was in the Dominican and when I was on the baseball field. It would have been very nice if I would have paid a little bit more attention when I was in Spanish.
See, love it done. Oh, boy.
Some of us of a certain age in the New England area grew up learning French as our second language.
Right, yeah.
That might have come in helpful for a while.
I would
with
like
the
to learn
Expos,
Maine
but-
because I've heard people from Maine talk and I don't understand what they're saying.
Yeah, well, okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. This is, I think most of it, we've got people from many different parts of the country here. I recognize some of them, many from New England though, and we are going to have a New England in-person meeting. Joanne, you want to mention it or?
Yes, I
This
take that up
Saturday.
because I'm champing at the bit to give that one. Yes, for all of you New Englanders out there, please note on your calendar, Saturday is the Southern New England meeting, which will be held in North Attleboro, Mass. And get a hold of Len Levin and tell him you're coming if you haven't done that already. So you're put on, you're put on alert for that one. So 11 a.m. In North Attleboro, let Len know.
And the information about the address and all is on the SABR website, or you could
Yes.
email Joanne or myself or
Yes, it's
someone.
yeah, 1A. All you got to do is hit 1A, you know.
The meeting will be at First Baptist Church, and it's on Park Street in North Attleboro. You can't miss it. It's on a hill right at the beginning of Park Street. It just stares right out at you. There's parking. There's a parking lot. If the lot is full, you can park on the street around the church. And we'll have all the things we usually have at our meetings, presentations, baseball book raffle, a lunch break, and a speaker. I forgot to mention our speaker, Richie Hebner,
Yeah.
who lives up the road in Walpole, Massachusetts, and digs graves for a living now. Will be there in the afternoon to talk to us, answer questions, and so forth. So lenlevin5@hotmail.com if you're interested in going.
Wasn't that your umpire number, Dale?
I'm sorry.
I was asking
Number
Dale,
5,
wasn't his
yes,
number
yeah.
number 5?
Number
Yes,
5.
that's
My
my-
first 2 years was number 39, and then I had
Yeah.
to go in the umpire protection program. So I went to
Right.
number 5. Yes.
Actually, speaking of the umpire protection program, that was one of my favorite stories that in the SABR book of umpires and umpiring is the first pitch that President Bush threw out after 9/11. It was game 3 of the World Series.
Yes.
You were on that
I
crew.
was there. Yeah, I had to play.
And there was one of the umpires, or one of the purported umpires, was wearing
Yep.
a weapon under his outfit.
Well, it was a Secret Service agent. Yeah. Jimmy Joyce and I walked into the locker room real early, and there was a gentleman sitting there, and he immediately got up and introduced himself. He was United States Secret Service, and he was going to be wearing an umpire uniform and come out on the field with us. Mark Hirschbeck, who had the right field line that night, stayed in the tunnel when we came out, so there would only be 6 umpires. They also had 2 agents in New York Yankee field crew uniforms. But the agent that we had in the umpire room that was wearing the umpire stuff, we saw what was underneath the umpire stuff. It was a couple guns and handcuffs and a taser. And I tried to get the taser. I said I could use the taser. I had Clemens that night. I needed the taser, but he wouldn't give it to me. But yeah, that's a true story.
Yeah, Dixie, I see you had your hand raised there. I don't usually notice that, but did you have something?
Yes, I have a question. I have a question for Dale.
Mhm.
As fans, we always see ejections after arguments and people throwing things and swearing up and down, hopping up and down and everything else. I was wondering if you could recall a mild ejection where the conversation was pretty good. No real bad words were said. And suddenly in the back of your mind, you said to yourself, I got to toss this guy for whatever reason. Do you remember anything like that?
I certainly do. AJ Hinch was managing Arizona. I was at second base. It was a call. I believe it was a catch, no catch. Obviously went against him. And AJ, and it was quite frankly, it was rather obvious that I believe I I don't remember what I called it, but it went against it. But it would seem pretty obvious. The outfielder either had pulled it out and then it fell, and it was obvious he had made the catch. And this, anyway. So he was arguing the call, but he never cussed me. He never there was no antics. It was just a matter of AJ, we've been over this. Let's go. This is what I have. Let's go. And he just kept pressing the point. And because if you did that, and I said, AJ, we've got to go now. This is what's going to happen. It's a catch, whatever. And it's time to go. And finally I said, if you don't stop arguing, if you just shut up, I'm going to run you. He kept on. I threw him out. There was no cussing. There was no antics. There was nothing thrown. There was nothing kicks or anything. It was just prolonging the game. It was just a matter of fact. And that there have been times where I'll just say, "Do you want to get run?"
Yeah.
Do you want to get run? Because if you do, great, I'll run you. But if you don't, it's over with now. Let's go. And usually, if they don't want to get run, they'll head back to the dugout. But AJ just wasn't going to do it that night.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember stories about a manager coming out and saying, "I have to make this look good for the team."
Well, yeah, I have that in the book with Tom Kelly, also Terry Fisher or Terry Collins. When he was with the Angels back in the 90s, did that, where he just wanted to get run. And, most of the time, I mean, there's different kind of arguments. Sometimes, first of all, there's the argument where they are really mad at you. They think you're wrong and they don't like you very well. Then there's ones where they're just protecting their player. They're just out there to just try to get their player from not getting run. I've had times where they've come out and I don't even think they knew exactly what happened. They just know that, they had a player jumping up and down. They might've been talking to the pitching coach about it, whatever. And so, what they say kind of, it's just a little bit off. It's like, what? That isn't what happened, but but you can tell they're just there because that's what they have to do. And another thing about managers and ejections, Bobby Cox is the all-time leader of ejections, but Bobby Cox got ejected because his mantra was, I can't win games, you guys can. And so I want you in the game. And if we need to deal with an umpire, let me deal with the umpire. And except for, Chipper Jones, and maybe I can't think of it because I didn't have Atlanta, until the 2000s, but pretty much that's what he did. That's what he did on that team, is let me get ejected because you guys are the ones that are going to win the game for us.
That sounds good. How about last, anything that either we should have asked or just something that you want to say or Rob yourself to kind of give us something to think about afterwards, or a parting note?
Well, I would say this is personal, but I already had some level of sympathy for umpires, but since I've become the commissioner of a baseball league, that's grown quite a bit. When you are sort of in the position of analyzing the behavior of coaches, especially, you realize that it's usually like umpires. They literally are not allowed to be umpires unless they can take almost anything. The most vile language, the occasional mild violence, and they basically can't react, especially now. There was a time when umpires were they weren't allowed to fight back, but if they punched a coach, they might get suspended or fined, but they'd still be an umpire. You couldn't do that now, I don't think, at any level. So it's a very one-sided relationship in that regard. So me personally, when I see an umpire being abused by, I shouldn't use the word abuse. I hope nobody from my league is watches this, but when I see it, looks like abuse, especially when the coach is, a large man in his 30s or 40s or 50s, and the umpire is a smaller person in his teens or more often early 20s in our league. There's an unequalness of that relationship, and you see it in the major leagues now too. Sometimes with these really young umpires that get brought up, I think they get brought up typically younger now than they used to. They might not be full timers. We talked about that, but they are in the major leagues umpiring baseball games at 28, 29. And umpires, as Dale would attest, are not selected for their size as they once were. I think they are selected for their ability more so than they typically were in the old days, which means you have these imbalances of experience, imbalances of size, imbalances of ability to react. And so it seems weird. It's that dynamic has changed a lot. And I see the umpires in the majors to some degree, certainly in my league, as almost these underdog figures. And so I find myself as a commissioner sort of wanting to help defend them from what I see as hostile behavior. And I think that I've just had more of those feelings since I've worked with Dale and learned more about the profession. But it's interesting. I'm talking to Dale, watch an umpire coach discussion now on TV or on video, and just notice the things that the coach or the manager is doing to try to intimidate that umpire. It's not very subtle, as I think Dale would, and Dale went through the same thing, especially when he was a younger umpire.
Right.
The managers, veterans especially, I think they feel like part of their job is to see if he can run this umpire off the field, or at least change a decision, make him think about it next time. And I'm sure there have been umpires over the years who just could not handle that. Dale did. Dale figured it out, or he just always could.
It's funny too. We always had a mantra. The manager argues. When the base coach argues, I always just say for a first base coach, you have three things to say: back, freeze on a line drive, and break up a double play. And you can't even say that anymore. So those are the things you can say. And when the third base coach is make sure it gets through, don't leave too soon, and and freeze on a line drive. But if a coach starts bitching about something, we had very short fuses, or not fuses, a tolerance for coaches, because you've got a manager. That's your mouthpiece. That's the guy that if there's a situation or an issue or whatever, he's the one that's going to deal with it. We're not going to listen to him and the pitching coach and the third base coach, and it's just that's not going to fly.
But the manager, you don't have a choice. There's a certain...
and it's it's part of his job. That's just it. A lot of times, like I said earlier, when a guy's coming out to protect his player, I mean, he's not necessarily getting in your face about a play. He's more just out there to try to make sure his player doesn't get run, and that's his job. And you understand that, and you understand that. We've gone into games where a team is in a 10-game losing streak, and they've just been terrible. And in the back of your mind, you go, someone's going to get run today. I mean, just usually when we say that, it's usually a manager, but it may be a player who's slumping or whatever. But you just kind of have that feel about it, because you just know that they're so frustrated at what's been going on. It's not necessarily it might be the first game of the series, but they've had such a bad week and a half, 2 weeks, that you can just feel it, that if they don't go up a few runs early or something, someone's gonna light a fuse, and you just deal with it. I mean, it's all part of the thing.
I'm going to show you all the book again.
Uh-huh.
The Umpire Is Out. And it's available, as they say, wherever good books are sold, online or otherwise. It's University Press. It's University of Nebraska Press, so you won't find it in a neighborhood bookstore probably, but it's not hard to find through the SABR website and
of course my
website.
website, umpiredalescott.com.
There you go.
I've done so many podcasts. I'm used to doing these plugs now. They're just natural.
Well, thank you all. And Joanne, do you have any final thoughts? And then I'll turn off the recording.
No, I think we've done it all. I think this has been just another one of these really great Boston chapters of meetings. And Dale, you have really, you've lived up to our reputation. You've kept it going. It was really, it's just fantastic.
Just saw a very nice note that came up on in the chat that says the book was plugged in the New York Times Sunday paper book review section just this past weekend.
It was.
That's
and
right.
we're thrilled about that.
Yes.
And by the way, if anybody has that, I didn't realize it was going to be in the print edition, so I didn't get one. And I went to order one online, and it would cost me $25. So, it's a little rich for my blood. So if anybody has an extra New York Times from the weekend hanging around, or can grab one of the book review sections from a store, I would certainly be thrilled to pay for your shipping and etc.
What
I
about
don't
just
think
a
that I've
scan
thrown
of
it
it, or
out
you
yet.
want
Yeah.
to have the artifact?
I want the paper, the print
Yeah.
The whole
version.
thing. Yeah.
That shows that, and a lot
I
of
may
bookstores
still have
carry it.
If I find it in the pile, I don't think I've thrown everything out yet. And I do remember seeing it, and I haven't cleaned the table off totally. So it's got to be around here still.
All right, thank you.
I'll look. And
Hope
I will.
to see hope to see a number of you on Saturday in person.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Great to
Thank
see
you,
you.
everybody. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.